Hey there folks, in this video we're gonna be looking at how you can create some realistic looking hair in Adobe Illustrator. Now this is of course 100% vector based, and with this technique you'll be able to render individual strands of hair as you can see here, giving you complete control over any type of hairstyle you would like to reproduce. The purpose of course is to embellish your NFT creations, but you can use this technique to perhaps create stunning portraits or maybe give you an idea on how to recreate complex designs made out of thousands of individual elements. To start, we're gonna grab a picture of someone with an interesting hairstyle, so let's go to File, Place, and I got this image off Google, not sure who this is, I think she's an actress or something. The reason I got this photo is because her hairstyle is not too long, not too short, not too straight, but not too curly either. It's just right to demonstrate this technique that I'm going to be showing you today. The first thing you'll need to do is just observe the hair of your subject a little bit and map out the general direction of the hair strands, starting with where they connect with the scalp and where they end. In this example, you can see the majority of the hair flows nicely. It's a relatively straight haircut, but it does have some curves which you need to pay attention to. Now that we have the general idea in mind, let's go ahead and select this picture, and we're gonna set the opacity to about 50%. And then we're gonna go ahead and lock this layer and create a new one on top of it. On this new layer, for the fill color, select none, and let's grab our curvature tool, which is similar to the pen tool, but for this exercise I think it's way better suited. Stroke is 1 pixel and stroke color is black, and what I'm doing is I'm simply tracing some lines that follow the general direction and position of some hair groups. Let's do another one here. For this type of hairstyle, you don't really need to create more than 7 or 8 lines per side, but of course these may vary depending on the hairstyle you're trying to reproduce and the amount of detail you want to add to it. Now let's zoom in a little bit, and what I'm doing is I'm placing a bit of a curve from the point where the hair strand emerges from the scalp, just to emphasize the idea that the hair is coming out from the head, not just sitting on top of it, being glued somehow like a cheap wig or something. Make sure to play with the handles to maintain a smooth flow of the hair strands. The lines should curve naturally following the hair of your subject and not be too straight or jagged. Alright, now that's done, we're going to select one of the lines, the first one here, and we're going to grab our width tool, and what we're gonna do is somewhere about 3/4 of the way from where the hair grows, we will set the width of the line to the exact same size as it currently is. This is just to create a marker and keep the width as it is for the line, because where the hair strand ends, we will reduce the width to 0. And as you can see, this gives the line a similar look to a hair strand, which naturally gets thinner towards where it ends. And now just repeat the same process for the rest of the lines. Now that's done, select the first line layer, and let's open up this layers panel to see all the line layers, and then go to Object, Expand Appearance, and let's zoom in very closely here where the hair connects. And what we're gonna do is see this handle here, remember its position because we're gonna click on the anchor point and click this button, which converts it to a smooth anchor point. Let me turn off the snap to pixel option, I don't want that, I need to be able to move the handle freely. And now we have 2 handles that we can play with. First, adjust the first one to place it back in its initial position, and then for the second one, drag it out a little bit so you can create a smooth curve. Now do the exact same thing with the other anchor point, and now this gives a bit more of a realistic feel. I know it's a minor detail, but trust me, it's worth the hassle. You don't want your hairs to have a straight line with a 90-degree angle from the point they emerge, because that's not how natural hair looks like. In the meantime, I just brought back the opacity of our picture to 100% because next thing I want to point out is how the light reflects across the hair. This is very important to observe for our next step. So as you can see, we have those highlights around here, along the bottom here, and then also at the top of the head here. Now let me set the opacity back to 50% and go back to our original layer and also lock this one. And now let's select our line shape and I'm going to apply a gradient to it. Click on the gradient options and let's click somewhere around here to set a light gray color and also somewhere here on the spectrum for a darker gray color. And let me also remove the complete black and complete white color stops. And just add some more color stops that we're gonna adjust right away. I'm bringing the darker gray towards this end and then doing a preliminary spread of the colors because we're gonna do the final adjustment using the gradient tool right here on our artboard. Let me drag this to extend it a little bit to just about match the length of our hair strand here, and then also rotate it and bring it the scale parallel to the strand of hair and make some small adjustments. What I'm doing is I'm trying to bring the lighter gray color to match where the reflection falls on our hair image. Let me zoom in a bit so you can see, and also you can do a Ctrl or Command plus H to hide the outlines and better see the result. Now here's the part where this gets interesting. Make sure this hairline is selected and go to Effect, Distort and Transform, select Transform, hit Preview, and let's set their number of copies to about 40 in this case. Highlight the horizontal field and using the arrows on your keyboard, let's bump the number to spread out the copies. I'm going for -2 pixels here, and for the vertical movement, let's see what makes sense. Seems to be between 0 and -1 pixels, so let me type in manually 0.5 because you can also do that. I'm pretty satisfied with this result. Hit OK. Now let's go to Object, Expand Appearance so that we can have all our lines individually selected. Then again, Object on Group. And now again, Object, and where is it? This one, Transform, Transform Each. Hit Preview here as well, select Random, this is very important. And now we're just gonna play with the values here for both horizontal and vertical. You can go a bit further with this to -10, -11, whatever makes sense for you. You can see how this basically reshuffles the hair strands on the image below. This is very important because we want the hairlines to be mixed around as the gradient falls a bit differently for each hair strand, so shuffling them will highlight each individual strand of hair. Alright, now let me disable the visibility on the other lines and just work with this hair group for now. I recommend you come in and using the selection tool just grab a bunch of hairs and reposition them kind of like how I'm doing here. You don't want to have them aligned in a straight line, but rather to replicate how hair is naturally grouped. You can even move individual hair strands like you see in this example. Alright, looks pretty okay for now, but just for a final touch you can reshuffle all of them once more, again by going to Object, Transform, Transform Each, and by playing with the values here I'm basically reshuffling them once again. And I'm just redistributing them once again to make sure there are no empty or bold patches. Once you're done with the final adjustments, select the entire group and press Ctrl or Command G to group them. And now from this point forward, all you need to do is repeat the exact same process for the rest of the 6 or 7 lines you have created. I just enabled the visibility for the next line and I'm applying the exact same treatment like we did for the first one. I'm going to speed up this part because there's no new information to pay attention to, however please enjoy the creative process and see how this hair comes together. Now that we've transformed all the initial lines into groups of hair, what we can do is name our groups to get them organized. My naming convention is very simple. I'm just starting with 1 for the first hair group, or the one that's sitting in the front, and going up to 6 for the group that's sitting in the back. You can definitely name them however you please, but I find this method the easiest of keeping track of the hair groups. Another thing that will make our lives easier and will quicken the process, now that we've done the work of creating the major hair groups, you can definitely start copy pasting and filling in the gaps, just like I'm doing here. Also, I recommend grouping the duplicates that have the same number, or in your case, whatever your chosen naming convention will be, into a larger group, let's say. This will come in handy in just a moment, where we might need to make some slight adjustments to the gradient. I'm also adding some small tweaks here and there along the way, firstly by bringing some hair groups on top of others or placing them behind, and also by making some duplicate hair groups smaller or larger, or just rotating them a bit. This is to ensure most of the gaps are covered and we're obtaining a nice looking result. Now, if we're not completely satisfied with how the quote-unquote light reflects along some of the hair groups, given that we have the exact same gradient applied, we will be able to open the gradient panel with the specific hair group selected, and by simply dragging the color stops along the scale, we can adjust where the reflection falls. The reflection in our case being of course the lighter color gray. Also feel free to adjust the brightness of any particular color by double clicking on it and changing the RGB values. Make sure to keep all the values consistent for the 3 colors, red, green and blue, as this will produce a lighter or darker gray to express whether the area is more or less exposed to light. Remember, we're working only with the color values at this stage, not with the color tones. We will apply those a bit later on once we have our shadows and highlights sorted. Alright, now that we're done with the left side, it's time to work on the right side as well. And because we did most of the work on the left side, the right side will be a lot easier to do. At this point, if the hairstyle that you're doing is relatively symmetrical, or if you're completely bored, you can just simply copy paste the left side and reflect it, and you're done. But in this case, I just want to stay somewhere in the middle by only tracing a few hair groups that are a bit different than the other side, just to bring out a more realistic look to the final result, starting with this front group here. Again, I'm going to be speeding up the video because it's the same process I showed on the other side. Alright, now that I've done the parts that were a bit different on the right side, I'm grabbing some hair groups from the left side here and just doing a simple right click, transform, reflect, vertical. Only thing that's left to do is just a bit of tweaking and adjusting the position of some of those groups to make sure they fit correctly on this side as well. Now let's go ahead and group this side. That's done by selecting everything on the right side and right click and group. Make sure to name it, and now it's time to turn off the visibility on our picture and focus on the final tiny details before we can transfer this hair to our willing subject. Finally, the part that you've been waiting for, creating some variations for this hairstyle. Now, the simplest would be changing the color and exporting this with different colors. So to demonstrate that, like we did for the eye tutorial, link in description if you want to check that out, I'm going to edit colors, adjust color balance, and just start playing around with the colors until you find something that looks really good to you. You can of course go crazy with this and create any shade of blue, purple, green, orange, you name it. But what I'm doing is I'm trying to find a color that I think might be suited for our model, just so I can show you some additional adjustments that you can bring to the hair using this illustration technique. I'm going for a reddish, sort of scarlet color in this example. This is looking pretty good, and what I want to do now is bring a bit of a darker color to the base of the hair. And you can do that by selecting one of the hair subgroups and then go to gradient options, and start adjusting the color stop that corresponds with the base of the hair, just like I'm doing here. This is where you can let your imagination flow and bring different types of colors in the mix, so you can have a certain color for the base and a totally different color for the middle portion, and yet a completely different one for the hair tips as well. Now what you see me doing is simply copy pasting the darker color red that I found for one of the hair groups onto all the other groups as well, so they can match. I'm going to be doing this for both the right side as well as the left side to stay consistent. And yes, you can definitely create the frosted tips effect with this technique. Practical application time. Select both sides and using Ctrl or Command G to group them, name it, hair in this case, we don't want to get too complicated with names here, and Ctrl and Command C to copy. Jumping over here, we have our model and a layer named hair, which I've prepared in advance. Another thing that I've done in advance was to create some eyelashes using this technique, as well as some eyebrows, proof that any type of hair could be illustrated using this method. If you'd like to see a tutorial on how to create eyelashes, eyebrows, beards, mustaches, or any other type of hair that you can think of, drop a comment below and I promise I'll follow up with a video. Also, if you've enjoyed this video so far and you found this method interesting and maybe you're thinking you would like to try it yourself, give this clip a like so you can come back to it at a later time. You can also subscribe for more content like this. Let's go ahead and place the hair in place. That's Ctrl or Command V, and I'm just making some small adjustments to it. I'm also going to be using the free transform tool to make the top of the hair look a bit more fuller, as it doesn't quite fit perfectly the head of our model here. You'll soon see that the more you'll use this technique, the more you'll become familiar with it, and you'll be able to start creating hairstyles directly on top of your models without the need of tracing them against a reference photo. Now, as you can see, we do have some gaps here and it's not looking very good right now. So for extra realism, what we're going to do is just copy paste the hair both right and left sides and just drag the copy to fit the remaining gaps. This will give the hair a bit more volume and a fuller look. Now for the final touch, I'm gonna grab the curvature tool here and I'm just gonna trace a shape that will be sitting behind the hair layers. The shape will have the general color of the hair so that it will cover any potential remaining gaps. Now, I'm not gonna lie, this is something that I cannot advertise as quick or easy. It takes about 1 to 2 hours to complete a relatively complex hairstyle. However, I think it's comparable to the time it takes to create hair in Adobe Illustrator using different methods. With this method though, as you were able to hopefully see, you do have some control over different areas of the hair, allowing you to create multiple variations. Also, in my opinion, this looks way more realistic and closer to the truth than different illustration methods. I really hope you enjoyed this video, hope you found it useful. Please feel free to check out my other ones. I'm going to be posting some more content like this, which would hopefully help you create some quality NFTs. Let me know in the comments if you want to learn how to create something specific, and until next time, good luck and happy drawing!